The MP for Ododo Diodio, also a Deputy Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, is my guest right here. We're talking some issues bothering, around his ministry, Nilante van der Poy. We're talking issues on local government, but it would vary because in his constituency, Ododo Diodio, when the primaries happened, the president, nobody contested you, so you went unopposed. Nobody had to vote for you, but they had to vote for the president. I was surprised he didn't get 100%.
He got over 99%. We had
Still not 100%.
We just had about less than 2% rejected or no votes.
Does it mean anything?
It means a lot. 99%, well, almost 99% people endorsing him.
I'm talking about those who didn't vote for him.
No, it's not a matter of, but because in every society you should have dissenting views. But I knew what happened. In my constituency, we had a situation whereby after the MPP primaries, we had a lot of MPP supporters defecting, so to say, to the NDC. I've always had my doubt about some of those people, and we have instances where we saw 1, 2 of them voting no. And we weren't surprised, and we didn't want to do anything to cause any problem at all at any of the polling centers. In 1 or 2 polling centers where those people voted, those were the places we had the highest number of no, about 4.
So you physically know these people?
Yeah, we know them. We know them.
So why do you allow them into the NDC then?
You see, when political parties must always open their doors for people who feel attracted to join them. So when somebody comes in and say for one reason or the other, I've left my party, I'm joining your party, I believe, and with my strategic planning, I always think that we must take time to evaluate the person, assess the person before we fully open our doors for the person. But you are not alone in the party. Others think that, look, they've come, let's welcome them. We need people. And they will give you the elders proverb that asamanfo krasi epedodo na ye atiasefo. So when they say those things, there's nothing you can do. You are not the all in the party. So, but I think it's a lesson to some of us. I think there was also strategic planning by the MPP guys themselves to get some of their people infiltrated our camp in order to do what they are now using for propaganda sake. But the primaries is not the decision. The decision is in 2016. And if Ododo is the determinant of elections in Ghana, then they better forget it.
How do you feel, though, about some of the big names that we won't see in Parliament after 2016?
Well, it's a bit worry to me because we are all learning. We've not yet learned. I won't say, especially we the first timers, we are not full-fledged mosquitoes yet. We are still learning from the older ones. So the experienced ones have to be there so that we can learn from them. When you have much more experienced people going out, it will affect the learning process because then you wouldn't get it the way you wanted. I have learned a lot from some of our old guys, like Honorable Seidu, Benkumbo, Honorable Yiti Mensah, and people like Agbesi and the rest. But they going out. But the truth must be told. A political party doesn't look like giving opportunity for young ones to come in. Doesn't become attractive. And as I'm talking now, we, some of the first timers who went in, have learned a lot. At least we also become experienced after 4 years. We also transfer knowledge to others who are coming in. My worry is some of the first timers who have lost out. I think it's not the best. Because for somebody to be an MP for a term, 4 years, the nation and the party will have invested a lot in that person. Some wonderful first-timers have lost out. People like George Lowe, Georgina Abua, lawyer Amin Wa East. It's a wonderful guy, brilliant guy. Abu Samson, another brilliant guy. All these young ones have fallen out, and it's a bit disturbing because there are various capabilities that we need to harness to move into the second term. So you see, those of us, the young ones who just came in, we are now standing on our feet well in order to be able to contribute meaningfully to debate on the floor next year. And then some of them fell out. and then you have to go to bring in new people who also start the learning process.
But
again.
you didn't protect them. The party didn't protect them in any way.
Well,
If
you
they
see,
meant so much to the
party is democratic, and as such, they want to give everybody a level playing field. It will not seem right for the party to be seen to be protecting a group of people against others. We also went in to compete against others in 2012, and the party did not protect those people. So it would be unfair for the party to say it's giving us an overtly protection in order to be able to. It is not right. But I think that it is not for me to decide for the people of those constituencies who their MPs should be. But I will take this advice for our constituents to understand that if you put somebody in parliament for 4 years, you have invested a lot in that person, and it is only good that you let that person stay in order to improve upon government business in the House the second term. I will also say that if an MP or a particular person is not too good, no, but I think the circumstances in Parliament makes it almost impossible for MPs to satisfy everybody in that constituency.
Especially when you go promising development in the constituencies. What do you expect?
We normally do not promise development from our pocket. That's the mistake people make. Every MP, everybody I've heard go on the campaign platform say that when I become MP, I will try and help do this. I will try and help do that. That doesn't mean you are promising. Every MP,
some people make promises. I will do this. I will bring jobs in the constituency.
MPs lobby for things. If somebody says he will bring jobs, what it means is that when he becomes MP, he will go look for the opportunity for some of his people to get jobs. I think the MP's salary is nothing that an MP will stand on a platform and say, I will build a road. How much is your salary?
But you've got a common fund.
Common fund. The common fund is not for the MP. The common fund is for the constituency. And how much does it come? The common fund is in two parts. The monitoring and also the project fund. You cannot touch the project fund because it doesn't come to you. It goes to the assembly. The monitoring is given to you to effectively do your work, go up and down and check that. So it is nothing. When people make pills. So I think we as MPs, we've not sung our song very well. Wow. We need to let the people know what we go through as MPs.
Okay. That will be a subject for another day, I guess. But let's talk about something which is related very much to your ministry. Yesterday, there was the release of the district league table in development. And we had districts in the Ashanti and Brahafo regions among the top. And at the bottom of the table, the Volta and the northern regions. First of all, how significant is the league table to the ministry?
Very, very significant because it helps us. It becomes almost like a feedback mechanism to us to be able to know what our MMDCs are doing on the ground, what assemblies are doing, whether resources being allocated to them from the central government is being used for the purposes, and whether they are doing targeted resource allocation, whether they are doing what we call effective planning of development projects in their area. It also helps us to be able to make our social accountability mechanism much more effective because this opens up the assembly for constituents, chiefs and people, stakeholders in the various assemblies to ask questions, to know what the assemblies are really doing. I know some of us who sometimes live in Accra and Kumasi do not really care, do not even want to find out how our assemblies are doing back home. So these ones, when you sit in Accra and you hear that your district is last, then it will prompt you to ask questions. What are the things that the assembly is doing that is not right? What are the weaknesses in the system? What are the strengths of the assembly? And I think that for the assembly, this is a SWOT analysis for them to be able to assess themselves. I also say that one of the best things that this does is also help us to have an effective prioritization with our development partners so that we know that in the central region, these are the most prevalent circumstances in the central region. So if you want to contribute to development in those areas, just do this, target these areas, and also be able to tell them that, look, this particular development partner, this particular donor, this particular NGO are all doing this in this area. But then These are the other areas that need attention. So can you refocus? Let me say one thing. I am so impressed with the league table, because when it came out last year, and I've taken it upon myself at the ministry, Honorable Julius Deborah asked me to take charge of that when he was the minister. Okay. And Collins Dada has also maintained that. As soon as it came out last year, I had a question of going around the assemblies, and sat down with some of the DCEs to do the analysis, the various 6 sectors, and go through with them. In the beginning, some of them were a bit apprehensive. They were not too happy, because they came under barrage of attacks from their constituents, their stakeholders, the chiefs and people of the area. But after going through the analysis, some of them understood and decided to work towards it. For the first time in the life of Ghana and in the life of decentralization, an assembly in the Volta region, Central Tom, they didn't do too well last year. So do you know what the DCE, the lady and the assembly decided to do, and the chiefs? They decided to organize a donors conference peculiar to their area. And they laid out their priorities to get NGOs, development partners and things to come in and assist them. This time, their situation, their position improved.
But the region as a whole is still very much down.
Yeah, so that tells us in central government level on how to prioritize our development funds, so that when we get to know that central region, the problem with central region is education at the basic level, because central region not do too well because of education. So then we go to the central region through the DCs and the chiefs and people. What do we do to improve upon education at the basic level?
So this is what you're going to do with this table?
Yeah, extremely. In fact, as at yesterday, my staff, the ministry staff, the research and monitoring unit, have started analyzing the results and disaggregating the various sectors, region by region, district by district, so that when you pick it, you will know that in my district, I did well in security. I didn't do well in environmental sanitation. I did well in health. I didn't do well in education. Then you will know what to do. Then together with assemblies, the DCs and assemblies can now prioritize how to allocate their budget.
But should we have waited for this league table to outline what our own issues are? I mean, if you're in a district, you must be familiar with what your core problems are. You don't have to wait for somebody to, come out with a chart before you know where you're lacking.
I agree with you, but sometimes our elders say the one who chart the path does not know that the back is crooked. You think you are doing so well, but it takes an objective eye to be able to tell you you are doing well, but in this area and in this area, you are not that effective. Can you take a look at that place?
Isn't our core problem really funding?
Funding, I wouldn't say yes or no, because the common fund is just a substitute or a complement to the efforts of the assembly to be able to generate their own funding. Let me give you an example. I went to an assembly in Ashanti region on a weekend, and in the town, the district capital, there were about 15 to 20 funerals. So I asked the assembly, how much do you generate from burials? No, nothing. So how much do you? I'm saying, what do you mean? When they finish the funerals, they will leave the debris for you, the assembly, to go and clean. How do they pay for that service? From today, propose to the chiefs, let it pass through the assembly's resolution, fee fixing resolution, that for every burial is 100 cedis.
Who pays that 100 cedis?
Those who are going to have the funeral. And will you believe that that has become the second highest revenue generating mechanism for the assembly now? That's an assembly in Ashanti region. So they are making more money now through funerals.
So is it that the assemblies are not creative?
I wouldn't say they are not creative, but it takes somebody to offer leadership, somebody to offer inspiration, somebody to also draw attention to some of these things. Yes, sometimes in our traditional setup, you think that certain things are not possible, but until you do the proper consultation, until you do the proper negotiations, and then you'll be able to have it through. Let's take, for example, a district in the Ashanti region again, Sechuafram Plains. This was a district that was carved out of Kumewu. They didn't have anything as at last year. They didn't have anything. In fact, school children have to travel almost every morning over the Afram River in order to access education. They were almost 214 or so, 213, 214 last year. So the young DC, we sat down, we discussed this. He said, Honorable, help me. So we helped him, we discussed issues. He went to the Iranian embassy, he went to the Saudi embassy and other places, and he got assistance to build the school. He went around
begging?
Yes, he went around begging. He got assistance for a school. He got assistance for a health center. Hitherto, pregnant women were put on a bicycle and driven to Kumewu.
Isn't that a 18. Shame? I mean, and as you know, a district has to go through these efforts to get some of these basic supports.
Yes, sometimes the chiefs and people of an area would demand a district without really looking at the consequences and the difficulties of it. But sometimes it also emboldens them to do things for themselves. It brings the ingenious, talents they have to harness resources in order to develop their district better. Because sometimes they have a feeling that because we are under a particular district, we don't get our share of the pie. So you give us even the little that we need, give it to us that we deserve, and then we'll use that little to do more. And it is inspiring. A lot of districts have done so well in spite of the difficult limitations and challenges they face at the creation of the district. Let me take, for example, there's a district in the northern region. Between that district and other districts in the northern region, it's a wide gap because they've done so well. But then that district also did better than close to about 20 metropolitan municipal assemblies in the rest of the country. That should tell you that leadership is also key in all this. The assembly and the chief executive, the traditional authorities and the stakeholders in that district need to coordinate, cooperate, sit down, talk, and be able to critically analyze the district and decide on priority areas.
Are they getting their subventions?
Yeah, they are. But why should the DCE wait for common fund before he embarks upon what he's supposed to do? One of the basic expectations of all assemblies is for them to be able to develop equitable, let me say, means of generating revenue from their own jurisdiction. They have to be ingenious.
But if the common fund was not as necessary, we wouldn't be allocating.
Yep. Common fund was even a latest addition to the assemblies. The assemblies, when assemblies did not have common fund, they were functioning. They were performing well. They were building schools, building hospitals without a common fund. So the common fund is just a complement to the efforts of the assembly to be able to... Look, assemblies have abundant resources. Recently, I went to the central region and I saw assembly, and I had a discussion with an assembly, and I told them, look, all these, let me say, fruits and vegetables that are produced in this area, why don't you, this assembly, come together, look at how you can partner a private sector to establish a food processing factory within this area, where all this pineapple, all these oranges, all these things could be turned into fruit juices for the schools around here, all these plenty of schools in the central region, all these institutions in the central region. So you have an off-taker, you have a market. So the farmers will also have an off-taker for their produce, and you also will produce and have an off-taker in the schools and institutions. So it's a very good plan. Sometimes that is what it requires.
Don't those things come with consequences, because somebody just getting up and coming to set up in your community, they would also come with their own demands.
That's why negotiations is key. That's why the assemblies will have to negotiate favorable terms with those private people in order for them to have a very congenial environment to invest.
So even with the district assemblies, you're saying that PPP is the way to go?
Yes. Yes, the district assemblies should be robust in revenue generation. These assemblies which are allowing individuals to destroy their environment through mining and others, what are they getting from those mining companies? In the eastern region, the Kwabibrim area, their water systems are going. In the western region, the Wasa Amenfi area, their waters are going. What are the people getting from those mining companies? They should be able to take steps in order to make sure that they maximize revenue, even if it will not be able to cure the ills and the fouling of the environment. At least the people will benefit from what activities going on. what is happening.
Let's talk about, let's get back to the table and look at the first on the table and the bottom on the table. Tema Metropolitan Assembly, we've got to probably say congratulations because they ranked first with a score of 77% in development in the 2015 district league table.
Do you know their position in 2014? They were 20.
It was down.
Yeah. But the second, Lamkwantanan, was 100. And they are second now. So now you go to Lamkwantanan and then find out what are the things they've done right now. Kwaibi Brem was about 100 and something, and they came almost about, I think, 50 something. In Samama Dwajiri, we were about 80 something, they came third. So we need to now look at the things they did. That with Tema, one of the key issues is improving upon sanitation. If you remember, some time ago, about 2-3 years ago, Tema were having problem with sanitation, where the sludge from public sewage systems were popping out, you know, so people were openly defecating along the Meridian area, along the beaches and all. But they took drastic steps to make sure they kept those things. The Tema has now taken serious issues with spatial planning. They are creating open spaces, greening areas, creating parks for children and all those things. 2, they've also taken serious cue on education. The other aspect was also security. They were not doing too well in security. The Tema region of the police administration have now improved upon security, patrols and things in the area. Let's take, for example, English Amman from, that is Gan South. You remember recently, I know you carried that story several times, about the incidents of armed robbery in those areas.
That has not stopped.
Yeah, but what they have done now is that, for once, the assembly came out to shout, to tell people, we need resources, we need support in order to give you what you require. People gave their houses, people donated cement, and now they have a police station, the IGP has staffed the place. So if tomorrow the police work effectively, what it means is that their score on security will go up more than it was. So you need, this should be a prompter for people to take proactive measures and decisions to address their deliverables.
What happened in a place like Gomoa West in the central region, where they have boldly occupied the 216th place with a score of just 37%?
The assessment, one of the areas they failed most was education.
In Gomoa West?
Yes. And this one has to do with the BEC pass rates. And I think that I had the DC for the area reacting to it. I think when it happens this way, yes, this is not a naming and shaming mechanism. It's a feedback mechanism. And I think that it is incumbent upon them to sit down and take a look at, do an analysis of the whole results, the 6 sectors, and be truthful to themselves, do an introspection, and see whether they've done well in those critical areas. The issue sometimes will become complacent. For example, Tano South was number 1 in 2014. 2015, they are about 25th. Because complacency may have set in. Instead of doing the things they did to become number 1, maybe they've relaxed. And so they've fallen. Others have taken pragmatic steps. There is an assembly which moved from 200 and something to about 100. And I said that assembly should be commended.
Would we see, because of the outcome of the table, would we see DCs, MCs fired?
Well, that the table will not be the main basis for any DCE to go. There has been an evaluation and assessment of DCEs over the period, and government is taking steps. I'm very optimistic that within a few days there will be some effective reshuffling, or possibly,
what does it mean?
Possibly of DCEs. And there have been places where we've had the DCE's term of office has expired, and we're going to replace them. There are other places where we have vacancies due to death or illness, and we'll be filling those vacancies. There are places where outrightly the DCEs have not performed, and those people will be replaced.
And that's not based on the outcome of the table?
This could also be a factor, because you see, Mavi, the truth must be told. If you were a DCE and you are doing so well, and all of a sudden you've slumped. We have to sit down and find out why you've slumped. Whilst others are moving up, you have slumped.
Are you going to give them the opportunity to explain themselves before you fire them?
Well, I'm saying this is not going to be the basis for firing them. We are not just going to fire a DC because of the DLT. But as I told them, they could fire themselves because their constituents and their stakeholders will ask questions. Why are we last? Why are we 200? Why are we not in the first 20? They will ask questions, and then they will ask questions. So that look, the resources that came to you over the year, what did you do with it? How did Assembly manage the resources? People will ask questions, and it helps all of us in our social accountability. In
the specific case of Gomoa West, you seem to appreciate the problem that they have with education.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
why would somebody like that be fired?
Yeah, I've not said he's going to be fired. He's a very
but
good.
He's occupying the 216
position. It's a very good DCE, and he's done well over a period. And if things have not gone well now, we'll sit down with him and go through the analysis with him, and maybe advise him, and let him also give us explanations and see how we can support him to improve upon the weaknesses within the system.
Let me shift focus a bit. I want to find out what has happened to the directive by Alhaji Collins Dauda for assemblies to elect one of their members to preside in the absence of an elected presiding member. That got some objections from the minority in Parliament.
It was interesting. The law, we have to look at two laws. The Constitution talks about the power of the minister in this, and also talks about the role and the functions of the presiding member spelled out, and how the presiding member should be elected. And then the standing orders are also there to talk about, to elaborate on the functions of the presiding member and elections. But there is something we call model standing orders, which is not the law in its entirety, which is only a model, which is a form. So assemblies are bound to take it or change it. It becomes almost just a form for assemblies to take it on the whole, change it to suit their circumstances, and also possibly reject it at all. It's a model. And we said that if the assemblies go to a meeting and they are unable to elect a presiding member, but that they have an urgent business to conduct, the standing orders permit them to elect one of their own, to preside over that particular meeting and not a sitting. But presiding members are elected for a sitting. A sitting of an assembly is not just one meeting. Various meetings come into a sitting. Even in Parliament, sometimes, almost every other day, sometimes, we amend our standing orders in order to sit beyond the closing time. Why don't somebody say it's illegal? You understand? So we said that time the assemblies need to approve their budgets in order for their budgets to feed into the government budget for it to go to Parliament for approval. And so we said that if they're having difficulty in electing a presiding member, then they should use the model standing orders to elect one of their own to preside over just that meeting, and then after that they go back, try and elect a presiding member. As I'm talking to you, some assemblies are meeting today, others met yesterday or something.
Using this specific standing order?
No, they now met to elect. So after that meeting, after electing one of them to meet and preside over the meeting to pass their budget, it's over. That person is no more a presiding member.
So this happened either way?
Yes, it happened. Almost all the assemblies were able to meet. Those who were having problems met. They passed their budgets. And those people who were elected only enjoyed that position for that meeting. Immediately after the closure of that meeting, their position is over.
So why was the minority
objecting
to this?
Well, sometimes we do things for political reasons.
So that was just for political reasons?
Sometimes. We do a lot of things in Parliament for political reasons.
I have a message. It says, Mamavi, the Ministry of Local Government should take advantage of financing for development concept that will help them increase domestic resource mobilization for development.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's a very good idea.
This one says, from the table district in Greater Accra, where all above the half of the table, no district from the northern region plays at the top 20. We know lots of resources have been channeled to the 3 northern regions, yet no district came to the top 20. Are they not misusing the funds? It's from Dennis.
And that is what people from that place, you and I, journalists especially, should be able to look out for. It is time now. It's a social accountability tool. So it's now for journalists to go out there and find out how the resources that went to those districts.
Are you going to fund us?
Yeah, we are ready to do that. We have a social accountability desk which helps journalists to find out more about these issues.
So we can come and tap into
it? Yes.
Right.
Why not? Yes.
Okay.
The French embassy also has a support for journalists who want to go into those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Finally, we'll end with Foster's message. It says, good morning, Mamavi. I'm really enjoying the education, but I would be very glad if all the districts can explain their position on the league table to the whole district through a public lecture. Is that something you're considering?
Yes, it's compulsory. It's compulsory. It's part of the transparency and the governance structure of the assemblies. Every assembly is mandated to at least hold one public forum with the chiefs and people of the district in order to explain the work of the assembly to them and for them to ask questions. What we have decided to do, this one what we did, we went on a national tour to do the analysis to all the DCEs at the regional coordinating councils. I was in the Western region, Central region, Greater Accra, and Ashanti region. But this time what we are doing is that we are even going to go further. We will move to the districts and let assemblies organize the DCEs, the coordinating directors, the planning officers, the assembly members, the chiefs and people of the area in the forum. Then we all go through the district league table. We analyze our district. Then people will ask questions.
Okay.
Then we all decide on the paradigm shift that we have to move in order to be able to achieve the desired results.
Okay.
And that's what we are going to do effectively.
All right. Thank you very much.
I'm
grateful for your time. Thanks for coming,
it's a
as
pleasure.
always. And this message says, Mamavi, I want to know Kwewu West in Nkoko position on the league table. Della from Nkoko, you are asking, kindly log on to myjoyonline.com and then you get the table. You find where your districts is on the table. But that will be it for our conversation with the Honorable Neil van der Poy, who is a Deputy Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, also Member of Parliament for the Ododo constituency. Yesterday, I did promise you we're supposed to have the Gender Minister in studio, but because of time, we had to record that conversation. But thankfully, I have a playback of that conversation with Nanoye Litha, and she answers some of the questions that you wanted answers to. So here we go with that conversation.
Basically, for the past 23 years, the United Nations and about 5,000 organizations worldwide have recognized gender-based violence as a global problem and a global challenge, especially for women. And so the United Nations, together with these organizations, have set aside 16 days preceding International Human Rights Day, that is in December, to highlight and campaign against gender-based violence. So that is the origin of focusing on 16 days every year, 16 days in a year, where we roll out and scale up a campaign to highlight the problems of gender-based violence.
Okay. We've been doing that for 24 years now. Yes. Why does the problem or the issue still persist?
That is the big question that we need to ask, particularly in Ghana, where if you look at data from DOFSU, you find out that just for last year, we had as many as 1,600 or so defilement cases, and also tens of thousands of cases of assault against women, as against less than 1,000 of assault against men. We still have a problem because of impunity, that the perpetrators of gender-based violence know they can get away with it. We still have a lot of cases not being reported to the police. Then those that are even reported to the police, sometimes we have the extended family and families saying that let's settle these cases out of court. So sometimes the victim who has been affected thinks that, I mean, what is the whole point of going to court using the little money I have for trotro to go to the police station when nothing will come out of it? Especially for the women in relationships. We know the premium placed on marriage, the marriage status, the relationship status. So even when the woman, who is more often than not the victim, is going through gender-based violence, is being assaulted, is being beaten by her husband or partner, should rather keep quiet to preserve the sanctity of the marriage, to preserve the relationship at the cost of her life and at the cost of being beaten to pulp. And that unfortunately aggravates the situation and leads to an increase in what we're seeing now in terms of the numbers on gender-based violence.
But where is the cushion? I mean, if I should come forward and report, and if the man is the person who is taking care of the family, then what happens to me? I think that's one of the questions that people keep asking themselves all the time before they even decide to step forward.
Yes. The cushion should be the institutions that we as a government and as a country have put in place to address gender-based violence. So the cushion is the Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit, or the shelter that has been put up by government, and the team of professionals who are supposed to help address the problem. The team of psychologists, the team of domestic violence, anti-domestic violence officials who will counsel and also counsel the victims and survivors and also help to rehabilitate them, and the social welfare officers. Unfortunately, we are found wanting in that respect in terms of the numbers and in terms of the quality of support that we give our survivors of gender-based violence. Let me admit this, that we need to do a lot more. I'm very happy to announce that the government of Ghana and the Ministry of Gender is being supported by DFID to come up with a very comprehensive research on gender-based violence in Ghana. We are hoping to launch it in March, so that will give us the figures and the reality.
Don't we know that already?
Well, we need evidence to evolve and determine what appropriate interventions we need, and then also what strategies we need. For instance, unlike other countries, research shows that the rape that occurs in Ghana is not necessarily stranger rape. You know, in other countries, it's strangers who will pounce on somebody walking in the park or something and rape. But you find out that in Ghana, more often than not, the perpetrator knows the victim knows the person who raped. It would either be within the home setting, or maybe the chamber and hall and the family or the accommodation or the community setting, or it could happen to the child, the girl in school, or it could happen to the young boy as he goes to play football. So within the football team, it could be a coach or something. So there is a degree of familiarity. But then in fashioning out interventions to address gender-based violence, we need the evidence. And the last comprehensive research we had was in 1998 by civil society. So it's taken so long, and we're grateful to DFID.
Are they giving us money when you say they're supporting?
No, they not money. They identified research, and then we, as the Ministry of Gender, led the process. And so it was a multi-sectorial, together with ISA, Institute of Statistical Services, Institute, ISA, the research institution at the University of Ghana. And then we also identified a group of researchers, and this has been going on for a year. They've been throughout the country, and so we have a comprehensive research. So from next year, we'll have the data. We'll know the regions, we'll know those who are likely to be perpetrators and those who are likely to be victims. And that helps us to focus and be more strategic about interventions to address gender-based violence in Ghana.
So if my husband was abusing me, for instance, and my children, I've got two children who are in school, and he is the main support system, what would the ministry do? Are you going to pay my children's school fees if he's found guilty and jailed, for instance? What happens?
The ministry does not have the capacity to prosecute and investigate. The ministry, under our Domestic Violence Secretariat, which is an institution mandated by the Domestic Violence Act of 2006 to address and manage issues relating to domestic violence, will refer the case to the Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit of the Ghana Police Service. They will then interview and investigate and ascertain whether or not your husband should be prosecuted. They have options. Sometimes, depending on the case, they could ask your husband to come and and they'll issue him with a warning letter, and then he'll have to come and sign a bond. If they have reason to believe that it's a very serious case, they would recommend prosecution and then go ahead and refer it to the JUPOL of the Ghana Police Service to prosecute. Whatever it is, they are the ones that have the legal capacity, and they are mandated by the law to investigate and prosecute. What we will do as a ministry under our Domestic Violence Secretariat would be to monitor the process. And then if there's a need to resettle or there's a need to ensure your accommodation and all that, we will do that under our Department for Social Development, that is the former Social Welfare, to make sure that, notwithstanding the fact that your husband is identified as a perpetrator, he's paying the fees of the children, and then he's also maintaining the children. If you are destitute, then we can do an assessment and place you on leaque so that you can receive. So these are the options that are available.
You know, I asked people to share their experiences if they felt violated. I got quite a good number on the show. One person said, I feel violated whenever my husband wants to have sex and I'm not ready and he forces his way. And she, added, how can I be helped? So if you have a situation like that, how can you be helped?
I believe basically this is marital, this is an issue, and she needs to be helped. This will be the role of social welfare and the counselors. I'm believing that we have reached a point in time in our country that we need to have dedicated counselors. What is happening now is that we have a lot of the churches providing counseling services, but counseling services would have to be mainstreamed into our social services, because I realize that quite a number of the problems, and like some of the phones in for your program, for instance, clearly there are people who are in need of counselors to help them. So this would have to go to a counselor who would then provide that professional advice on what she can do. But what the husband is doing is very wrong. You cannot compel or force somebody to have sex with you, whether it's your wife or not. Your wife and you have certain conjugal rights, and that is not part of conjugal rights. Do not forget that marital rape is a criminal offense in Ghana. So even within the marital union and within conjugal rights, you need consent. So sex, even within marriage, should be consensual. And we need to build healthy relationships. And that is why we need to ensure that within the marriage, we have consent, even for such activities. I think it's the right way to go. We have a healthy relationship in the family. It positively affects the children and the whole family and the well-being of the family.
I want to read this message. It says that the ladies understand that soon they will be sending bride price to men's house to ask their hands in marriage. By then, they can also toast the men to any shape they want. And I'm thinking, maybe you've heard about it. The bit about the bride price, the fact that I am marrying you, sends a very strong message. It means that I own you, sort of, even though that's not what I'm saying, but that's how it comes across. Is there something, I know some time back there was a discussion as to both parties paying something or contributing. Where do you stand on this?
Well, I mean, this is our custom. This is our custom. For me, once we're in a relationship of love, a relationship of give and give and give and take and take and take and give, that is not for me a big issue. Once there's mutual respect in the marriage, I mean, giving of bride price should be a thing of pride, and it should be a thing of pride and of joy, and it shouldn't be an issue about who gives what. I don't think so. I don't think it should be an issue.
Somebody's asking, we should also consider what contributes to these assaults on our beautiful wives and educate them to shy away from them. Are we looking at that?
I do not agree with the person that we should look at what, yes, we should look at what contributes, but we shouldn't automatically make an assumption that it is the fault of the woman, because this is the assumption that this person who has written this message is making.
But if you're a wife and you're disrespectful, I mean...
And if you're a husband and you're disrespectful, if you're a husband and you are disrespectful, if you're a wife and you are disrespectful, so let's look at it within a relationship and not necessarily pointing to a husband or a wife. Yes, we know. In fact, I've read the preliminary results from the research, and an issue like pocket money and maintaining and money, pocket money, no, chop money, that's what we call it, not pocket money, chop money and giving money to take care of the house is a major issue that brings a lot of disagreement within the family and causes these assaults.
Violence against women, as much as we're talking about that, we shouldn't forget that the men too, because we have some women abusing their husbands emotionally, and that kills faster than physical abuse.
Well, that is true. That's why I talk about both sides. That is very true. That in as much as we have women, but the data, the statistics that we have is that if we have 10 victims of gender-based violence, 9 are women. You may only have 1 or half, if you can count half a human being as a man.
After the 16 days, what are your expectations?
Yes, I mean, we're using the 16 days to scale up the campaign in Ghana and across the world. After the 16 days, I'm hoping that your listeners and everybody in Ghana would be aware of the dynamics of gender-based violence, would have heard something on radio, on TV about gender-based violence, and would do something to address and reduce gender-based violence. If for nothing at all, would not perpetrate gender-based violence. Okay. So we're talking to those who are prone. And let's improve communication skills, and I'm happy you use this program to educate listeners and people who watch your program on improving communication within a family and within a relationship. I think that is very good, and let's use your program and other programs to project healthy, well-grounded, happy families. That is what we would want after the 16 days of activism in Ghana. So everybody watching and listening, please get involved. Let's stamp out and sink gender-based violence in Ghana.
All right.